Hello, T-Birds, and welcome to the second installment of the series I am calling the 5-Minute PD. In this presentation, we're going to take a look at the history of the peoples of the Pacific, their migrations, and some of the interesting features of their cultures. And then in later presentations, we're going to be zeroing in on specific islands. The settlement of the remote Pacific has generally been associated with the Lupita culture that appeared on the Bismarck Archipelago some 3,400 years before present, and then spread into the previously uninhabited islands of remote Oceania, reaching Tonga and Samoa on the edge of Polynesia Triangle by about 2,900 years before present. It is generally accepted that the Lupita culture is an extension of the Neolithic expansion of Austronesian-speaking peoples. The Lupita culture evolved around 1500 BCE in near Oceania and then spread rapidly east into remote Oceania. Their characteristic pottery, together with evidence from radiocarbon dating, has enabled anthropologists to accurately trace their migration as far east as Samoa. The Lupita people are the ancestors of the Polynesians. They fished, grew taro, yams, and breadfruit, and kept pigs, dogs, and chickens. Many words for foods in Polynesian languages are very similar, and linguists have used them to help reconstruct the Proto-Austronesian language of the Lupita. For instance, the word for taro, talo in Tongan, was talis in the Lupita language. Migration to and settlement of the rest of the Polynesian Triangle did not begin until some 1,700 years after the colonization of Samoa and Tonga, with the settlement of New Zealand around 730 years before present, marking the end of the Austronesian expansion into the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean islands are grouped into three major groupings: Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia. Polynesia is made up of over 1,000 islands in the Pacific, and in fact, the name means many islands in Greek. Polynesia includes 6 independent nations: New Zealand, Samoa, Tonga, Tuvalu, Vanuatu, and the Solomon Islands; 2 political bodies, part of larger nations, Hawaii with the U.S. and Easter Island with Chile; 2 self-governing bodies with ties to former colonial powers, Niue and the Cook Islands with New Zealand; and 5 territories administered by other nations. With Polynesia being made up of over 1,000 islands that are spread across 117,000 square miles, one might wonder how these communities shared languages that are related to each other and shared cultural practices and traditional beliefs. The answer? Travel across the ocean. Just how did they accomplish this? Recreations of dugout canoes used in ancient times to travel between islands has been recreated by the Polynesian Voyaging Society in Hawaii. They have created a boat named Hokulea that has been navigating the Earth regularly in previous years without use of any modern technology, just as the ancients did. Upon the creation of the Hokulea, there was just one problem. There were no more master navigators on the island of Hawaii that could guide the vessel on its journey. So the Voyaging Society looked outside of its culture and found a master navigator on the island of Satawal in Micronesia named Mau Piailug. Mau came to Hawaii and helped guide Hokulea on its first journey to Tahiti, and subsequently trained Nainoa Thompson to continue the tradition. Voyages of Hokulea included a 2-year trip to Aotearoa and Rapa Nui, otherwise known as Easter Island. Here we have examples of the star compass that Mau taught to Nainoa Thompson to be able to use wayfinding as a method of navigating the Pacific by only using the stars and observance of nature. If you want to hear from Pacific Islanders themselves, here's a great video that I highly recommend you watch after this presentation to really solidify your understanding of the cultures of the Pacific and some of the stereotypes that are often thought about them. Okay, I am trying something new. For my reference list, this QR code will take you to a web mix that is now part of a website called Symbaloo, if you've never heard of it. And if you do not have a phone, simply type in the link here on your screen, and it will bring you to the web mix that contains all of the links to the articles and videos I have used in this presentation. One parting thought. How can we weave the history and accomplishments of our Pacific Island students' ancestors into our curriculum? to connect them with their past and the contributions made to the collective knowledge of humankind by their ancestors? How can we weave the tradition of wayfinding and navigating into modern education? And more importantly, how can we help our students see themselves in our school curriculum today?